Hi everybody, Pastor Tucker Johnson here, and everybody knows I love my young people. Some years ago, I used to tell Bible stories in a place called South Tampa, and I remember one time, one of my young people late at night called me up about 9:30 and said, "TT, can you please tell me a Bible story?" I couldn't believe it, and she said, "I love the way you tell Bible stories." So I'm going to tell you a Bible story today. It was laid upon my heart to tell you this one. First of all, I'm going to talk about a king by the name of Belshazzar. But I got to give you a little history about Belshazzar. He was actually the grandson of old King Nebuchadnezzar. And if you remember King Nebuchadnezzar at one point he had overtaken Jerusalem. And he put all of these Hebrews in captivity. Yes, they were in bondage. But what I didn't like about old King Nebuchadnezzar, he had 3 and 4 of my favorite people in bondage. Yes, they were known as Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. Daniel is important to this story that I'm getting ready to tell because Daniel was actually an interpreter of dreams. He could interpret all these dreams. That's how close he was with God. But I love those fellas. Anyhow, Nebuchadnezzar had gotten beside himself, trying to do all this stuff to God's people. And guess what? God brought them all out. But it did come with a price. Because y'all know the Bible, what the Bible verse says. It says, "Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap." And yes, Nebuchadnezzar had to pay for all of his arrogant sins and willful disobedience. And so God literally allowed him to live in the wilderness for some years before his senses came back. And the Bible tells us when his senses came back, he had to go back to his kingdom. And he had to go back and he had to say to everybody, "Yes, to all, you must now worship the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." Won't he do it? Well, fast forward. Let me tell you a little bit about his grandson. He never learned his lesson. You know, there's an old saying that says, when you know better, you do better. Belshazzar did not learn. But the thing about it was, Belshazzar was also a king. And he had risen up and he had his own place and he was so arrogant. This is what he did. He thought he was indestructible. Well, God had news for him. One day, he decided to have this huge party. He invited 1,000 of his closest friends to the party. And they got drunk. But you know what was even more worse than the party? He had the nerve to take some of the good stuff, the sacred stuff from out of his cabinets that was supposed to be on preserve, that was holy. He used that at his party to let all of his people get drunk and carry on because this was his party to let everybody know his kingdom was indestructible. Nothing could happen. Well, got news for you. Today, I'm going to tell you what happened with the writing on the wall. They were partying so everybody was drunk, slapping their knees. They were so happy, thought they had it going on. And all of a sudden, this hand appears in the middle of the party. And he begins writing on the wall. Yes, I said hand. No arm, no body, nothing but a hand. And Belshazzar, King Belshazzar, he looked and he didn't know what was going on. And there were these 3 words. I believe they were Mene, Mene, Tekel. Spell something like Menemenetekel. Anyway, it freaked King Belshazzar out. He didn't know what it meant. So he called for all the people to leave. Just get out, get out. And he didn't know what was going on. This is why God continuously says, stay sober, vigilant, and alert. He was so devastated. So when everybody left, he called for all of his people that he thought could interpret what the meaning was on the wall. But at that time, his grandmother was still living, King Nebuchadnezzar's wife. So he called her and he said, I've got to find out because nobody knew. And she said, well, let me tell you about this man that your grandfather used to count on. His name was Daniel. You need to call for him. And yes, they called for Daniel. And when Daniel came, King Belshazzar did the same thing that he always did, that his grandfather did. He kept trying to make these promises in order to stroke his ego. He told Daniel, if you can interpret the dream for me, I will give you this, 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 and this. Well, Daniel said, sir, I'll go ahead and interpret for you. But Daniel didn't have that kind of heart with trying to get something for it. I'm just going to tell you, Daniel said, it means your destruction. Well, he didn't quite say it like that, but that's what he meant. Because no sooner than he said that, the same people that King Belshazzar thought could not come and overtake his whole kingdom, they bust right through the doors. Not only did they overtake his kingdom, they killed him. So this is what happens when we suffer with arrogance and pride, lies. It gets you nowhere. You're going to always reap what you sow. Unfortunately, his kingdom was divided, split right in two, but he was gone. So, with the writing on the wall, it only means that when you are doing things that are not of God, and you continuously operate in a way of arrogance and a way of pride, it's a sin. You will reap what you sow. I'll come back to you with another Bible story. That was the writing on the wall, found in Daniel chapter 5. See you later, you guys. I'm Pastor Chucka Johnson over at Christ of Calvary Community Church. May God be with you. Love.